So, welcome everyone. This is the second installment in my discussing the philosophy of religion series. This presentation is entitled The Sacred Feminine in Medieval Christendom, and I'm drawing on the scholarship of Anne Baring, with whom I've had two discussions previously on this YouTube channel. And we're going to be looking at the symbol of the feminine and how that symbol is preserved and expressed and articulated poetically over 2 millennia of the Christian era, the medieval era and the era of Christendom. So the presentation is entitled The Sacred Feminine in Medieval Christendom. The feminine is here symbolically expressing some different ideas: the hiddenness of the Godhead, the veiled inwardness of the soul, the anima, the attractive power of the good, raising up from the earth, supporting from below, the moon, the oceans and dreams, voice, intellect and anima. Anima, particularly soul here. So the feminine here is a secret, a mystery, something veiled, and something which has a wholeness and a goodness that awakens eros, desire, in the soul. So these are all symbolically feminine. These are all aspects and meanings associated to the image of the feminine. So what I'm doing here methodologically is employing what Carl Jung termed associative thinking. There are dangers to this. There are idiosyncrasies to this. What I'm doing is I'm allowing my imagination to fire off connections to classically feminine imagery. And that's imperfect. It's imperfect, it's poetic, it's imaginal, and yet it's an active, dialogical way of mapping something that is ultimately unknowable and is ultimately mysterious. So let's go back in history and go back into the mythos of history. There was a martial era, an era predicated on power. This is Mars, where we get the name. Is it the Roman god? I believe it's the Roman god Mars, the god of war. Here's Mars. And here's Augustine. I'm pretty sure this is Augustine. Augustus Caesar, the one who innovates the concept of empire, the imperial spirit. The imperium is something derived from martial conquest and martial victory. So this pattern of martial domination expresses itself in Greek culture with the Spartans, and also in Roman culture in particular. And so this is Caesar Augustus here, initiating the notion of empire predicated on martial power. And here we have a Spartan warrior exemplifying this martial spirit. If you would like to map this martial spirit in your imagination, please watch Gladiator and please watch 300. There you go. Now you have images of the martial culture predicated on power, predicated on strength and honor, which is an ethic that is explored in those films, Gladiator and 300. So we have the idea of the Good Samaritan in the New Testament, compassion and care for the excluded and the marginalized. And what is excluded and marginalized in a martial culture, a masculine patriarchal culture of ancient Greece and ancient Rome? Well, the image of the feminine is arguably marginalized in such a context. Because women are not persons in the Roman Empire. This is something we must remember. They're not citizens, they're not persons. And this is troubling, and this should be troubling to our contemporary consciences, our moral consciences, and our sense of what is right and wrong. And to fundamentally deny the personhood of women is a really foul and savage morality, really. And so pagan morality, as it was known, can be justly critiqued on this basis, I think. And so we have a switch at some point. Here's a mystery which I'd like to explore in this presentation. We have a switch, the martial era, into the era of Venus, the era of veneration. And I was fascinated to learn the etymological roots of the word veneration, synonyms of which are worship, really, and prayer. The etymological roots in Latin go back to this image of Venus, who was a deity. And Venus is a planet, just like Mars is. So these are macrocosmic realities that exist right now in the sky, and you can see them with your naked eye, Mars and Venus. There are also patterns of power, war, and aggression, Mars, and compassion, sympathy, mercy, love, on the other hand, Venus. And so at some point, the martial culture was overtaken by the culture of veneration, the culture of Venus. Here is a controversial image by Botticelli, which could be found in the Uffizi in Firenze, Toscana, Florence, Tuscany. And it's a radical image because the feminine is unveiled here. This is Venus in nakedness. And this is a revolutionary aesthetic move in the Renaissance by Botticelli, because he is unveiling the feminine image in a profound way. And this image, I believe it's called The Birth of Venus, if I'm not mistaken, is a depiction of Venus. And so that's why I include it here. But it's a very particular one aesthetically, because we have, of course, traditionally speaking, the Theotokos and the Greek Orthodox Christian tradition. Theotokos is the mother of God. Mary, the virgin who consented to divine conception and who gave birth to the Logos himself, Jesus Christ. And so the icon, the image of the Theotokos, the mother of God, Mary, was preserved in the Orthodox tradition up until this day. And you will notice that the Theotokos is veiled and speaks of a hidden inwardness, a hidden depth, a hidden anima, a hidden soul to reality, and a connection, a vital connection between the spiritual and the material, between heaven and earth. We have a Catholic Christian representation of the same icon, the same image, and Mary, and she is in a posture of veneration. So what I would like to say to you is not that Mary in Christianity is Venus, but I would like to suggest to you that the culture of Venus is preserved in a potent, living, rich and dynamic way in the Christian tradition. This is so common of Christianity as it brings up into it pagan tradition, I see this as Christianity taking the god Venus, who is a pattern, a reality, a planet, an influence, and for that pattern to participate in a real way in the Christian story and the Christian narrative, in the person of Mary, who is veneration personified. We have certain female mystics in medieval Christendom who are geniuses and who contemplate sublimity and love and beauty in the most eloquent and profound of ways. This is Hildegard von Bingen, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, a German nun and mystic. Here is some of her artworks, depicting her divine inspiration in the center here. Here is Julian of Norwich in England, Julian of Norwich, another Christian, a female Christian mystic. So this presentation just took a turn, but it's kind of connected, so hopefully we'll see it. The Queen's Gambit scores as Netflix's most watched scripted limited series to date. So that's like a fact, a quantitative fact, a mathematical fact about how much attention and how much interest was garnered by this series called The Queen's Gambit. Well, what is a queen, you see? A queen in chess is arguably the most powerful piece. Well, actually, I would say the king and the queen are the two equally most valuable pieces. Actually, if the king dies, you lose the game. But if the queen dies, you also, practically speaking, lose the game because you lose the greatest source of your power as a chess player. If you lose the queen, every chess player knows this. And so you can play on without the queen. You can win without the queen, as Fischer has demonstrated. There are exceptions, of course, but as a rule, you do not want to lose your king or your queen. And so I would argue that both are vital symbols in the game of chess. Anyway, so what is a queen? Well, I'll have to move my image here. Oh, I'm just in here now. Well, there's this rise of nobility. There's this pattern that happens in late medieval Christendom where European females are recognized as places where the divine is, they're recognized as sacred, basically, as places of theophany where the sacred is being revealed. Yeah, have you ever heard of the divine right of kings? Yes. Well, there were many European monarchs from, let's say, the mid-15th century onwards who were female and incredibly powerful and were the arche. That's the Greek word for like principle, as in hierarchy. They were the highest arche of the society, the queens. Okay, and there's a stretch of queens here from Isabella, Catherine of Aragon, Catherine de Medici, Mary Tudor, Elizabeth, Victoria, and Elizabeth II, I should say. Oh, that's a mistake. Anyway, what I'm communicating to you is that this had a direct influence on what a queen is, as in a chess queen, because the game of chess evolved in this medieval context. It was actually preserved on the Silk Road and came from the Arabs initially, and then comes up through Spain and Sicily, basically. And it's synthesized during the kind of late medieval era. A lot of the chess theories, such as the Sicilian, the Spanish, and such, come from this era. What is a queen? That's what a chess queen is, but that's what a real queen is. And those things are mutually related. As the queen, as the keeper of the faith, actually, as Elizabeth II is in England, this is a powerful image of femininity. And this powerful image of femininity, which pronounces itself during the medieval era, becomes kind of condensed and symbolized and captured forever in this game of chess, where the queen is the most powerful piece. So yeah, the feminine is acknowledged to participate in the divine, as in this statue here. Yeah, so that's a crucial point, actually. Yeah, so the monarch, the queen, is a hierarch, a monarch who is in touch with the divine, who has the divine right of kings, but is a queen. And through centuries, this image becomes personified in real persons, in their lives, in their struggles, in their rule, really, and in the annals of history now. And these annals of history deeply did shape the game of chess as it emerged and became standardized, which is just an interesting connection. And so that's, I think, an explanation for the success of the Queen's Gambit. So the feminine is not acknowledged to participate in the divine in ancient Greek or Roman culture. These were martial cultures, in essence. Women did not wage war. So that's an argument I'm making. I think I could be criticized here. And people could say, well, what about the seers, the oracle at Delphi? What about the priestesses? What about Diotima and such? Yeah, women had a role in ancient Greek society and in ancient Roman society. But as Larry Siddentop, the political philosopher, has argued, the Roman citizenship and the basis of Roman identity was a pater familias, is a Latin word, and it means like the right of the father. It's like a patriarchal system where the father needs to basically sacrifice to the ancestors and gains legitimacy as a person in Rome through this paterfamilias right. And Sintop argues that emerging Christendom, the Christian faith, begins to invert this paterfamilias and actually undermine it fundamentally. And we can see this in modern political history with the suffragettes and the push towards the franchise. In Christendom, you see, we are all citizens, mystically united under the universal or Catholic city of God. Universal or Catholic, that means if I'm a man, if I'm a woman, if I am tall, if I am short, if I am young, if I am old, if I am any of the opposites and polarities of being human, if I am any of these variables, I am equally entitled to the kingdom. The kingdom of God is available to me in the same way as it is anyone else. And this is universal, this is Catholic, and thus the aspiration to a universal education, universities, the very idea of a universal education, it's all wrapped up in this concept of a Catholic city of God, as St. Augustine articulated. So that image is very important in the medieval era. And it's deeply related to this image of the feminine, because the image of the feminine is brought in under a universal ethic. There is space for the masculine, there is space for the feminine, and there is an imago Dei undergirding the fundamental dignity of both of these categories of person. Christian metaphysics based on love provided the conceptual basis for an ethic of universal human dignity. So I think I've just made that argument basically. But yeah, based on love, yeah, the agape love of the Christians is like the Good Samaritan, reaching out in sympathy and mercy, in veneration and praise, raising up that which is low, raising up the cast out stone, making that the center stone, and really evangelizing and loving outwards and extending a hand of Christ's unbounded mercy. And it is this process of agape, of love, that forms a coherent political conception of universal human dignity, which many aspire to valiantly and wish to defend these days. Oh, I've got an image now of an alchemical hierogamy, means a sacred marriage between the principle of Luna and the principle of Sol and Luna, which I think are loosely analogous to Mars and Venus, but they're not the same symbols, Sol and Luna. Sol and Luna means sun and moon, but they map interestingly the parallel, which I've been discussing today. So they're both holding a holy grail here, which was the object and telos of the whole alchemical and hermetic project, which lasted for 1800 years in Europe. The Holy Grail, this star image is important too, because we have the masculine Sol and the feminine Luna. Heat and water, these kind of opposites too. Hierogamy, a very beautiful image, I think. Very beautiful, some powerful, potent symbolic image. Anyway, look, hopefully that was a useful presentation. Hopefully I contributed something useful here. I was doing some associative thinking with the symbol of the feminine, and hopefully that was fair and reasonable thinking. Although I could be fairly and rightly criticised for my the idiosyncratic way I am associating that symbol. But there's some really fascinating history there about the idea of the queen and how that idea is preserved in modern chess as it's played, and a connection to Christianity and how Christianity actually forms and dignifies and preserves iconically through the imagination the image of the sacred feminine, and that's a valuable thing for the faith to have done. So let me conclude there. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for watching.